Yo, what's good everyone? There's only going to be one new character in 3.7, but it's going to be a big one with Cyrene. People were hoping Cyrene was going to be a big support with her being Harmony, but she was quite niche, which I found a little disappointing. Cyrene is a bit more flexible with her having a lot more units to synergize with, which gives us something to look forward to. Only issue is having the stellar Jades to pull her. That's where loot bar come in. They sell in-game currency for all kinds of gachas including Genshin Impact and Star Rail, and it's up to 25% cheaper than in-game. My favourite thing is they run special bundles for each patch, like the current time limited pack for the 3.6 banners. These are useful not only for those going for Cyrene but also Evernight and Danhong. I find the in-game prices are too expensive to justify buying, but the loot bar prices are worth it. They've worked with other creators you might have heard of like Jello Impact and Raiden Shotgun, and have over 25,000 positive Trustpilot reviews. They're completely safe and I use them myself. You only need the UID and server and your crystals will go through immediately. Check the link in the description to grab an extra 10% off discount. Okay, so Cyrene is an Ice Remembrance character that is capable of buffing all units, but is tailored towards Amphoria's units. There's a lot to her kit, but the TLDR is you build 24 recollection points, we'll talk about how you get them later. This allows you to pop her ult because she uses those points and not energy. This summons a Memo Sprite, the Memo Sprite can then either attack or buff an ally. Build 12 more recollection points and you can make the Memo Sprite act again. Now let's look at the kit in more detail, including how to build recollection points so you can use Cyrene's ult. Her basic attack deals ice damage to a single target, scaling off her HP and gives her 1 recollection point. Her skill gives 3 recollection points and deploys a zone for 2 turns. While it's active, each instance of damage dealt by all ally targets will deal an additional instance of true damage equal to 20% of the original damage. Her talent makes it so that when combat begins or after Cyrene takes action, teammates and their Memo Sprites gain future. When allies with future take action, they consume future to give Cyrene 1 recollection point. It takes 24 points to ult, but she can hold 27. While Cyrene is on the field, everyone's damage is increased by 20%. Also, at the start of a battle, when there are 1, 2 or 3 Chrysos heirs or Remembrance units in the team, not including Cyrene, she gets 2, 3 or 6 recollection points at the start of combat. This just makes it so she can pop her ult quicker. Her ult summons her Memo Sprite, gives the Memo Sprite an extra turn, activates everyone's ult, and Cyrene enters the ripples of past reverie state, which enhances her basic attack. The enhanced basic attack gives 3 recollection points instead of 1 and deals some AoE damage too. The ult also increases Cyrene and her Memo Sprite's crit rates by 50% and deploys the zone effect from a skill. When Cyrene's speed is 180 or higher, all allies' damage is increased by 20%. For each point of speed past 180, Cyrene and her Memo Sprites get 2% ice res pen up to a maximum of 60 exceeded speed points. Her technique deploys the skill zone at the start of combat. Okay, so overall there's a lot there, but the main thing is summoning the Memo Sprite. Why is the Memo Sprite so important? Well, the Memo Sprite gives unique buffs to each one of the Chrysos heirs. There are a lot of them, so we'll go through each one individually. We'll talk about teams now as well, because it makes it easier. Firstly, while Chrysos heirs get unique buffs, non-Chrysos heirs get their damage increased by 40% for 2 turns. This makes it pretty universal. I'm not sure how many she'll be best in slot for outside of the Amphoria's cast, but she's a nice flex where you don't have the best in slot. Don't forget that she gives another 40% damage buff to the entire team, true damage from her skill zone, and her ult also activates everyone else's ult one time. Now let's move on to the Chrysos heirs. Some buffs are effective for the entire battle, others are one-time effects. In order to trigger the one-time effects multiple times, you'd need to get another 12 recollection points to make the Memo Sprite act again. We'll start with the permanent buffs. When you use Cyrene's Memo Sprite skill on Remembrance Trailblazer, they get increased attack that scales off Cyrene's Memo Sprite's HP, and increases Trailblazer and Mem's crit rate scaling off Cyrene's Memo Sprite's crit rate. When you use Trailblazer and Cyrene together, Trailblazer gets an enhanced basic attack that makes Cyrene's Memo Sprite take action and automatically attack. If Cyrene's gained recollection from everyone in the team, this attack deals an additional instance of damage to a random enemy. When you use the Memo Sprite skill on Tribby, Tribby's damage ignores 12% of the enemy's defense. When she launches a follow-up attack and triggers the additional damage from Cyrene's zone, it deals another instance of additional damage. Costa Rica's best team as of right now would be Evernight and Hyacinth with one of Remembrance MC or Tribby in the flex. Cyrene's Memesprite makes it so Casserole's new bud can overflow up to 200%. New bud, to those not familiar with the terminology, is the energy needed to pop her ult. When she uses her ult, any overflowed new bud is consumed to increase the damage multiplier. The damage is increased even more if there are 2 or less enemies on the field. When you use the Memesprite skill on Cypher, it increases Cypher's damage by 36% and reduces the patron's defense by 20%, as well as the other enemy's defense by 12%. I was looking forward to seeing Cyrene's synergy with Finan, and the good news is they work well together. As of right now, people running with Sunday, one of Cyrene or Bronya, and then either a flex support or a sustain. Cyrene's Memesprite skill gives him 16% crit rate when entering his ult form and makes it so that he doesn't come out to the ult form but instead refreshes his extra turns. Now he loses 15% of his current HP when using these turns and deals 5 instances of additional fire damage to a random enemy. Using Cyrene's Memesprite skill on Cyrene will increase the crit damage of a character with military merit by 30%. After coup de man ends, Cyrene immediately gains a point of charge. We've just got Evernight, and while there is an option to play her as the main DPS, I think it's a little underwhelming as of right now. Cyrene definitely makes it a more viable option though. Cyrene's Memesprite gives Evernight's Memesprite 48% increased damage when it uses its big attack, and after Evernight uses a skill or ultimate, she gets an extra point of Memoria. If you're running Evernight with Tribby and Hyacinth, you only need to target Evernight and Tribby with Cyrene's Memesprite skill once. Those were all the characters that get the buff for the entire battle. Now let's look at the characters that get their buffs as a one-time effect. Anaxa was the surprise package for Amphorius in my opinion, and it probably doesn't surprise anyone that he's the beneficiary of another new support. When you use Cyrene's Memesprite skill on him, you get a skill point, Anaxa's next action is advanced by 100%, he gets 40% skill damage, 60% attack, and his skill deals 3 extra instances of bounce damage lasting for a turn. I think it's a shame how Aglaya's become an afterthought among the Amphorius cast, given the fact she's so prominent in the story. Cyrene's here to give us some love though. Cyrene's Memesprite skill immediately maxes the stacks on Garment Maker's speed boost. After Aglaya or Garment Maker use an attack, Aglaya gets 70 energy, increases her and Garment Maker's damage by 72%, and ignores 36% of the target's defense until Aglaya leaves her ult state. Another almost forgotten character from the Amphorius cast is Maidi. Most agree that he simply doesn't deal the damage that Caster Bean or Finan deal, but does Cyrene have the potential to elevate him to that level? Unfortunately not, but when you use his skill on him when he's in the Vendetta state, he'll automatically use Godslayer with an extra 60% crit damage and won't consume charge. If he's not in the Vendetta state, his action is advanced by 100%. I'd like to see this one get buffed, but I don't think it will be, to be honest. I think we plan on releasing another imaginary DPS at some point in the next region. Maybe Skrullin will finally be playable. When you use Cyrene's Memesprite skill on Hysolence, she gains 60 energy after using an initial attack. Her damage is increased permanently by 100%, and after she uses a basic attack or skill to attack enemies, the dot currently applied on the attacked enemies will proc for 60 to 80% of the original damage. When you use Cyrene's Memesprite skill on an ally, it also gives Hyacinth 24 energy and 2 stacks of a poem about Sky. When she has a stack, her Memesprite skill heals more and she'll consume a stack when she uses a skill or ult. When you use Cyrene's Memesprite skill on an ally when Dante's in the team, his bondmate gets 16% increased damage for 2 turns and the next 3 attacks of Soul Dragon deal extra damage. When you target Dante with a skill, his Soul Dragon's action is advanced by 100%, the next action gains the enhanced effects of his ult and increases the multiplier of his shield by 150%. It also doesn't consume the charge from his ult. For stats, you definitely go speed boots and HP rope. The chest and orb are a little more nuanced. For more damage, you'd go crit chest and ice damage orb, but to max out the buffs you're given to Trailblazer, consider a HP chest and orb. In terms of relics, you can go World Remaking Deliverer for 8% crit rates, 24% HP and 15% damage to the team. For the Planar Ornament set, there'll be a new one that gives 8% crit rate and increases all allies' speed by 8%. Fleet of the Ageless gives a 12% HP and a teammate's 8% attack. Broken Keel gives a 10% effect res and all allies 10% crit damage. It's also worth considering running Arcadia on your other units in full remembrance teams now, so definitely lock in any good pieces you have. For light cones, her signature is obviously going to be a best. It has the highest base HP for a Remembrance Lycone in the game, gives 18% speed. When she uses a skill on an ally, it increases damage taken by enemies by 10%. When she uses a skill on an enemy, she gives allies 16% crit damage. When she's used a skill on both an ally and enemy, she increases the effects of these buffs by 120%. Fortunately, I don't think a Lycone is necessary, and you can just give her the Hertistore one to give her 12% speed and 16% damage to all allies. If it's already occupied, you can give her Victory, which you probably have on Trailblazer, but there's a new Lycone for Trailblazer in 3.7. I'm not sure how we obtain it, but if it's free, you could just swap Victory onto Cyrene, but it does have lower base HP than the Hertistore Lycone. Now, is she worth pulling? In my opinion, she's definitely one of the most fun supports we've had in recent times. I don't think Star Rail facilitates much flexibility in team building, but Cyrene's list of potential teammates is longer than most. I'm definitely going to be pulling her. If you enjoyed the video, join my Discord. It's a nice community, we do monthly Welkin giveaways, and there's a channel to flex your pulls and builds. Subscribe if you're not already, and take it easy.